So there's three friends who are in a bar, a physicist, a mathematician, and an engineer. And then walks into the bar, and they sit down at the other end of the bar are three beautiful women. And they're trying to muster up the courage to go and talk to them, but they're very nervous. And so they devise this plan where they're going to approach half the distance to the woman. And then after a minute or two, they'll go half the distance again, and then half the distance again. But as they're debating this plan, the mathematician says, this is impossible. It's not going to work. It becomes an infinite series. And the physicist says, yeah, this, it won't work, but until time reaches infinity. And the engineer replies, well, it'll work well enough for practical purposes. We'll get close enough for practical purposes. So this is a kind of a joke based off of Zeno's paradox about, never actually arriving at something and if you're approaching half all the way. But in our Christian faith, we have a similar paradox about Jesus coming, but also being with us at the same time. We hear the kingdom of God is near. But at other times we hear the kingdom of God is in your midst. So is the kingdom of here, or is it something that's coming? And the answer is, well, both to some extent. Jesus is with us. He's in our midst. But we're still longing and yearning and waiting for his glorious coming. We're in an in-between period in salvation history. In a few days, we'll be celebrating Advent. And in Advent, it reminds us of that time of human history longing for God, longing for Jesus in his coming, but him not having arrived yet. And then there will come at the end of time when we will be all united as one with Jesus in heaven, and there will be no distance, no separation. But now we're in this in-between time where Jesus is with us, and he's accompanying us to his second glorious coming. It reminds me just, I think it's very fitting celebrating Thanksgiving this week. It's a very similar experience, perhaps. We recall a group of pilgrims who are celebrating a certain homecoming of sorts. Or for us as well, we often travel great distances to be with family. Maybe the kids in the car saying, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? But then also when that experience of that joining in that celebration together as family, there's this sense of being at home with each other. And that's an image for our lives in the Christian faith as well. We're pilgrims on a journey. And there's periods, as we heard about in the book of Revelation today, of persecution and trial and distress. But then there's also this glorious coming where a new heaven and a new earth suddenly appear, and the holy city, heavenly city of God, comes prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And so if we feel at times, at home with God, that's a good thing. If there's at times when we're longing and yearning for him, that's a good thing as well, because that's exactly where we are. We should be confident that Jesus is with us. As we said in our responsorial psalm today, here God lives among his people. But in that same responsorial psalm, we heard, my soul yearns and pines for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. And so may we always recall these two things, that Jesus is always with us in the midst of our suffering and our the challenges that we face, because we are a pilgrim people. But he is with us. But at the same time, we're constantly yearning for him. So the other side of that is we're yearning, we're waiting for God to be with him, desiring this time where there will be no trial or distress or persecution or any of that, but just complete union. And so as we celebrate this Eucharist, receiving Jesus in our hearts, we will recall that this Eucharist is viaticum, it's food for the journey. And so may it strengthen us on this journey, knowing that Jesus is with us and he's preparing for us an eternal home with him.